Greetings fellow gamers, I'm the Soulsborne Seeker and today I'll be reviewing Dewdrop Dynasty, a Metroidvania created by Dewdrops and released on the 23rd of July 2026 for PC. Dewdrop Dynasty has been a passion project for Dewdrops, who developed the game by himself over a 6-year period in an effort to make a Metroidvania that matched the stellar quality of Hollow Knight but without its melancholy vibes, instead opting for a whimsical approach in theme and presentation. I first came across Dewdrop Dynasty about 3 years ago and was instantly hooked by its retro visuals and fluid character motion, which immediately led to it landing near the top of my wishlist and eventually made it a day one purchase. With Dewdrops having poured a lot of love and sweat into this game, I was definitely expecting it to be something special going in. That being said, and after having completed the game, it's time for us to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of Dewdrop Dynasty, since it does have a bit of everything. Dewdrop Dynasty takes place in an ancient, once prosperous underground kingdom known as the Underland, that was eventually attacked by a group of giants who sought to bring darkness and despair to its population. Following a great battle that saw many of the realm's inhabitants perish, the giants were finally defeated, and from their remains came 4 sacred Dewdrops said to grant prosperity and power to those who possessed them. Fast forward many years later and you, a small bee named Poe Lin, fall out of the sky and, to your misfortune, land dead smack into that kingdom, with your wings getting destroyed on impact. After being nursed back to health by a good Samaritan, you learn that the only way to regain your lost appendages is by gathering the aforementioned Dewdrops, since they can also grant wishes. The kind stranger then gives you a gun to protect yourself, and you're off to the races. The game's plot is fairly straightforward and doesn't really hide any surprises, though it does set the foundation for some solid world building, with the Underland being a beautiful place to traverse, as each biome sets itself apart from the rest through unique environmental themes, hazards, and enemies, all of which come to life in glorious 8-bit visuals boasting vibrant color palettes that make every pixel pop out of the screen. I also appreciated each area's structural layout, with every room featuring a design that favors uneven edges which give your surroundings the organic quality expected from a natural setting, thus increasing immersion. Beauty aside, said biomes also ignite the embers of nostalgia for those of us who grew up during the retro gaming era, since the vast majority of them draw clear inspiration from the Super Mario games, both for their themes as well as the enemies that populate them. I mean, I dare someone to look at these flowers, or these turtle-like creatures, or this flying mage, or to travel through the ice and lava biomes and not get instant flashbacks from when they were holding an SNES controller in their hands while staring excitedly at the red-clothed plumber in their CRT TV screen. Even the fast travel system is inspired by Nintendo's Juggernaut series, though more on that later. Special note goes to the game's music, with each biome featuring its own fantastic melody, all of which have the uncanny effect of making you wistful as if you've heard them before, even though they're completely original. Now, while the setting itself is quite engaging when it comes to its visual approach and natural structure, exploration does leave a lot to be desired. On the upside, the game has several collectibles for you to gather, including upgrades for your health pool and ammo cylinder, various items, gear, and weapon mods that influence combat and exploration, as well as a bunch of flitter bugs you must find and return to an NPC for a reward. On the downside, most of these collectibles are not found but purchased from the various merchants populating the world, which is truly a missed opportunity since there are several places you'll come across when exploring the Kingdom of Underland that will feel like they could be holding a secret, only for you to realize that a suspicious wall is just a wall or a pretty section is simply ornamental. There's also a toy vending machine that accepts tickets in order to release plastic balls which I hoped would contain a variety of items and upgrades, but ended up mostly yielding the game's currency while offering a special gift for every 5 tickets you spent, that I felt was another missed opportunity since many of the merchant items could have been included as random rewards here, which would still not be as good as them being found in the field, but better than purchasing them. Another issue I came across with purchasables was the fact that, when it comes to gear items, which correspond to headgear that changes the way you look, there's no clear explanation whether the change is simply cosmetic or if it has some added benefits. For example, I got this mask whose description mentioned that it is useful for befriending a specific enemy that I was having trouble avoiding due to their speed, so I wore it in hopes of them leaving me alone, but no luck, since they still attacked me. Also, I'm fairly certain that when it comes to the health upgrades, which refer to half pieces of 4-leaf clovers that increase your health when gathered in groups of 2, the game failed to raise my health at one point, even though I had collected the required number, since I managed to gather 6 of them during my playthrough but only got 2 extra health points, so unless I'm missing something here, this is probably a bug. Staying a bit on exploration, the map overview is kind of a mixed bag. Starting with the good, the overview is logistically accurate in terms of design and matches each area perfectly. It also displays merchants, save and fast travel points, as well as your own location on it. In addition, it offers a limited number of manual markers to place wherever you wish, which you should start doing immediately because I never found a way for collectibles to be marked automatically. On the downside, there are some rooms where the player icon and map layout do not align, which can lead to confusion when navigating those parts. Furthermore, there is no fog of war and every room you enter is immediately marked as fully visible, which is never helpful when trying to remember which parts you need to revisit after getting a new traversal ability. There are also a couple of places where the map has been severed and shows sections that were normally connected now disconnected, which happened after an update and did lead to some momentary surprise as I was trying to figure out if those places were unexplored, even though I had actually explored them. Finally, while I loved the theme of the fast travel system, which has you descending into large flowers like Mario sliding down a pipe and then leads you to a hub area from which you can choose where to fast travel next, each area only had one such flower, which often led to some tedious backtracking in order to return to that flower and fast travel to the hub area so that I could use the flower of a different biome. In my humble opinion, adding one more flower to each area would make things infinitely better without simplifying the process too much, so here's to hoping. In terms of platforming, despite the game's whimsical nature, Dewdrop Dynasty features some surprisingly challenging acrobatic segments which I did enjoy, for the most part. Poe has a solid traversal arsenal at his disposal, including a dash, wall jump, and gun hop, the latter of which allows you to stay airborne for a few seconds while shooting down, and is incredibly fun to utilize. Most of your traversal abilities are tied to items you find or purchase, of which you can have a total of 2 equipped at any given moment, which may sound restrictive, but I can't say it caused me any trouble. Now, the reason I didn't fully enjoy this aspect of the game is because here we have 2 issues that rear their ugly heads, with one being way more frustrating than the other. The first problem, which I consider a nuisance but not a deal breaker by any means, is related to the game's wall jump ability. In essence, after acquiring the relevant skill, you're able to jump against a wall and then jump away from it in order to reach new heights, or if you choose not to jump away from it, slowly slide down its side, thus having a bit more control during platforming sections. Now, in order to remain glued to the wall and eventually slide down its surface, you need to make sure the analog stick is pointed in its direction, and there lies the problem. You see, allowing the analog stick to come to a neutral position will have you dropping from your spot, which means that in order to jump away from the wall, you must quickly move the stick from one side to the other and hope to God you get the timing right, otherwise you'll drop before you get the chance to make the jump. This process led to some very awkward and at times frustrating situations where I plummeted to my doom during segments that I would normally consider basic, though to be fair, I did get used to it eventually and the developer does intend to address it in a future patch, so things should improve soon, if not fixed already. However, I'm not sure if that will be the case for the second issue, which I found to be quite egregious. Ward is for the flamethrower, a weapon you gain after a certain boss fight, which supposedly allows you to use it as a sort of jetpack in order to boost yourself upward, and I say supposedly because either that thing doesn't work as intended or I'm getting something wrong. You see, while I consistently managed to perform a boosted jump, which was fine, there are certain platforming segments that are clearly meant for the flamethrower to be used intermittently in order to control my height and navigate them. Problem is, following the first boosted jump, the flamethrower loses its thrusting ability, meaning that if you try to aim it down and use it again to reboost yourself while in midair, you just fall. The same goes if you use other traversal abilities in between. For example, I tried starting with a boosted jump, then moved to a dash, then a gun-assisted jump, before coming back to the flamethrower in case it needed me to activate it again only after using something else first, but that didn't work either. Someone could argue that maybe it works as intended and just offers one boost, but if you see the platforming gauntlets you come across right after acquiring it, you'll understand that it is meant to be used in quick succession, since those gauntlets are mostly comprised of lengthy spiked corridors that definitely require of you to remain in the air for a prolonged period of time, and trust me, I tried my best to navigate them by combining my various traversal abilities as they are, but no dice. Combat-wise, I'm happy to say that this is a highlight of the game due to the simple yet entertaining nature of just shooting things in the face. Ranged is the name of the game here, with Poe mainly relying on his gun in order to dispose of his enemies, which is incredibly satisfying to use. You eventually gain a skill that enables you to unleash a more powerful shot by holding down the attack button and charging your weapon, which is nice and also allows for very high jumps if aimed downward. Your battle arsenal is further complemented by equipable gear items such as a dynamite stick as well as the aforementioned flamethrower, though to be honest, I never really bothered with them since the gun is just way more efficient. Your weapon starts off with 2 bullets before expanding more by finding upgrades which, as far as I understood, are mainly relevant to the gun hop ability so that you can remain airborne for longer since reload times are non-existent. In addition, there are weapon mods you can buy and equip in Tetris fashion that offer benefits to your pistol such as occasional double damage and faster shots, among others, which are incredibly useful. Replenishing health happens either at save points or by taking down enemies and gathering some golden crystals they drop, which can be a lifesaver at times. Not so helpful is the death penalty that you incur when taken down, with Poe permanently losing a percentage of his currency upon perishing without even getting a corpse run attempt, something I'm not a fan of, but the developer is working on a solution for this, so good news in the horizon. I'm also not a fan of certain enemies that are nearly impossible to kill without taking damage due to their crazy speed, like these lizards that I simply avoided whenever I had the misfortune of coming across them because they were just not fun to fight. Speaking of not being fun to fight, some of the flying enemies can go into walls but are still capable of attacking you while your own shots are blocked, leading to frustrating instances of having to wait for them to come back out so you can resume the offensive. Enemy attacks can also go through walls even if the enemies themselves aren't in the walls, which led to some random projectiles coming at me from a foe I previously avoided and moved on from, something I found unfortunate but also kind of hilarious. One last annoyance here is related to an item that gives you the ability to summon one of 3 floating companions. While one of them is meant to help you gather dropped currency and works as intended, the other 2 felt completely useless, with one being a floating fireball that just approached enemies and stayed there, seemingly doing nothing, and the other a floating shield that literally did nothing. I'm not sure if this is a bug or something I didn't understand, but either way, it doesn't look good. When it comes to bosses, I was very much pleasantly surprised by Dewdrop Dynasty's offerings. With one somewhat dull exception, the rest of the big bads were very fun to duke it out with, featuring unique attack patterns that made each fight an engaging little puzzle for you to solve and overcome, effectively providing a healthy challenge without ever feeling unfair. I will say that the last boss had some questionable hitboxes in a few of his attacks, but nothing too problematic. What was problematic were the unskippable intro cutscenes of a few of the villains, especially the aforementioned final boss one, but the developer released a patch that fixed that, so no complaints here. Another thing reportedly patched was a bug related to the boss of the ice biome, which kept you from being able to leave the arena after beating it and forced you to quit and reload so that you can be teleported to a save point, but I cannot vouch for its effectiveness since it came out after I had already moved on from that section. When it comes to difficulty, I'd situate Dewdrop Dynasty on the normal side of things, with some challenge spikes related to a couple of bosses, including the last one. The game does offer 3 different difficulty options for you to choose from, namely Dreamy, which is essentially story mode, Standard, which was the one I experienced, and Nasty, where 1 death equals game over, so there's something here for everyone. I should also mention that there currently seems to be an issue with button remapping for controllers, meaning the game doesn't allow for it, which is another thing expected to be patched soon. As for length, it took me 8.5 hours to complete Dewdrop Dynasty with about 90% completion, with an estimated additional couple of hours to grind the currency required for 100%, though the aforementioned flamethrower issue will have to be addressed in order for a few of the rooms to be explored fully. For a price of about $8.50, Dewdrop Dynasty is actually great value for money when it comes to the entertainment it offers, making it an easy recommendation if only to try it out and see if it works for you. Before we get to the verdict, I do wish to extend huge respect to Dewdrops for his tireless efforts to patch the game according to feedback from the community. He really is a stand-up developer that loves his creation and values his customers, and I truly hope the game becomes immensely successful, which I firmly believe is going to be the case following a couple more patches. In conclusion, I had a lot of fun playing Dewdrop Dynasty despite its flaws. I loved its whimsical world and the interesting characters populating it, I adored its musical score, I had a lot of fun with most of the platforming challenges, I thoroughly enjoyed combat and had a blast with the bosses. On the downside, the wall jump and flamethrower issues did sour parts of the platforming experience for me. Exploration left a lot to be desired by making a good chunk of collectibles merchant products. The map overview could use some quality of life improvements, some of the items need better explanations on their utility, the flying enemies need to stop being able to go into walls, and it would be nice to have a way to retrieve currency you lost upon death. Despite a rocky start, Dewdrop Dynasty is a clear labor of love that improves with every patch released. It wasn't as good as I expected it to be, but for a solo developer project, it is quite impressive and will definitely function as a stepping stone for Gujis to create something exceptional in the future. My final verdict on Dewdrop Dynasty is 6.8 out of 10. What did you think about Dewdrop Dynasty? Have you played it yet? Do you agree with the points I mentioned, or do you see things differently? Let me know in the comments below, and please subscribe if you enjoyed this video. As always, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, Soulsborne Seeker out.